So you've just shot a deer. Congratulations. How exciting is this? I'll tell you. When you shoot a deer, there's a couple of things that you really need to think about. The very first thing you need to do, I feel, after shooting a deer is you don't do anything. You need to sit there, you need to listen for the deer. Where's it running? Did it crash? Sometimes you can hear the deer, they'll literally crawl under deadfall and crawl into places to hide, to where they'll go and they'll die, and it makes it very difficult sometimes to find. So the very first thing is don't do anything. And for God's sake, resist the urge to start running after it and going after it. It's probably the biggest rookie mistake. I've made it numerous times. You get a deer, you shoot it, and maybe it's a long shot, and you follow it, and you jump the deer, and it starts running. It'll run until it passes out, and it could be miles. You don't want to do that. They'll typically, if they've been shot, they'll run not that far, less than 100 yards, sometimes like 25 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, and they'll lie down. Let them bleed out. If it wasn't a critical organ shot, they'll bleed out. Resist the urge. For me, 20 minutes. I'll usually wait 20 minutes, sometimes longer, before I'll even go to investigate. It depends on how much light you have left, because obviously you have to look for the deer. If it's late in the evening, maybe I won't give it any time. But, and if I can confirm my shot, that's the beauty of hunting with a video camera. Sometimes you can also take a look at the video camera to secure just how good of a shot it was. So just avoid that. If it's over a stand, similar to what I'm hunting today, then I'll get down, I'll wait 20 minutes, I'll listen for the crash, I'll wait a little bit, I'll come down, I'll go to the stand where I fired the shot. And then I'll look for blood, hair, something to indicate, you know, how good of a shot it was. And from that's the point from which we'll pick this up, how to look for the deer and how to search for the deer. So just try to avoid, you've got to calm yourself down. That's one of the biggest things. It's easy to get excited. I get so excited after shooting a deer. It's tough, but keep your ears open, listen for the crash, the direction of the crash. If you're shooting with a muzzleloader, it becomes even more problematic, because with muzzleloader, there's so much smoke, sometimes you can't tell which direction the deer jumped. So you need to be really paying attention if you're using a muzzleloader to listen to see what direction it's running in. So we have a windy day here today. Let's get to it. I'm going to show you what I do whenever I shoot a deer. So I shot a deer here last week. Nice little 6-point buck. Perfect meat for the freezer. And he was passing behind this little group of trees here. I've got a little scent cage here that we put apples in so the squirrels don't, and porcupines don't eat them all, and leave some scent in the area. But he passed right behind this, and I shot him right here. And so the very first thing for me was I waited, I listened. I was pretty sure I heard him crash, but I wanted to make sure that he didn't go and crash and crawl in somewhere or lay down, and I didn't want to spook him, so just in case. But nonetheless, I waited a little bit, I came down to the apples, I knew it was right behind here, I started looking, and if you look at the video tape of it, I couldn't believe it. There was no blood. There wasn't a drop of blood. There was a tuft of hair, just maybe enough the size of my thumb. That's it. And so I was pretty disappointed. I really thought that, you know, but it must have been a good shot. I mean, I know it had to have been a good shot. I was pretty sure it was. So I was looking around here in this area. Now my experience has been that typically deer, when shot, they will start running in the direction they're facing, unless the impact spins them around or something like that. But for the most part, they jump and they go in that same direction. So for me, that's my first point. Making sure that I know this area. Now, if I was walking through the woods and I came across the deer and I shot it, if I fired at a deer while I was walking, I would tag the tree. So I'll always carry this orange ribbon tape. And so if I'm making trails or just so I don't get lost, And so what I would do is I would mark that area in the woods. Now, what I did do with this is, as I started to enter the woods here to see if I could find the deer, I marked a tree with the tape, and it was going to be my starting point from which I was going to go. Now, there's two ways that you can go and search for deer. There is the come to a spot and do semicircles like this, gradually bigger and bigger and bigger. And that seems to be the typical way that most people do it. I'm not quite that typical, I guess, and so for me, maybe the excitement catches up to me, but I like to put a ribbon as the starting point, the last point that I saw the deer go, or the last area. So I'll mark the tree at that point, and then I will track the deer for about 50 yards in the direction I think it's going. Then I'll come back to that tree, and then I'll do another 50 yards. I'll come back to that tree, and I do this, okay? Until I find blood, tracks, whatever. Now, if you're in good territory or, you know, area where you can actually see tracks, then, you know, I'll be the first one to go and follow the tracks, right? And go. But I will always mark it, because the one thing you don't want to do is go, was I on this area? Did I search this area before? I don't want to waste time tracking, or, and this has happened to many hunters, getting lost out looking for the deer you just shot. So I'm always marking where I'm at. I just think it's just way safer, and it starts getting dark. And remember that the key to the distance here, how often do I tape this? I tape so that I can see the ribbon from one point to the next. So if it's real dense, it may only be 10 yards and I'm putting another flag on. Or if it's a little more open, it'll be a greater distance. I'm also, if it's near the end of daylight, I'll make sure that I can hit it with a flashlight, that it's close enough that I'll be able to see it with a flashlight as well. So, but this to me is my deer tracking friend. It keeps me from you know, going over that territory again. So let's go and I'll show you what I did. So when I got to this point, I flagged a tree and I said, which way is this deer most likely to run? And for me, it's always to the point where the deer is probably going to take the path of least resistance. So when I saw this area here, I kind of assumed that this is the spot right here that he would probably run. So this is the direction that I went. I keep flag tape about eye level, and I'm consistent with that. And so I know that my tags, I don't have to be looking for a height range. They're always at the same height. From this spot, the deer that I just shot last week, he was only about 30 yards from here. It wasn't much of a search. He crashed exactly where I heard him crash. So it was a very easy search for me to find him. Once I got to this year's deer, I realized why I hadn't seen any blood. It was all internal. The body cavity was completely filled with blood. It was a double lung shot, part of the heart, but none of it. There was no arterial spray. It was the bottom of the heart, and so what ended up happening was it filled the body cavity. Where he died, expired, was just literally completely soaked with blood. So it was a good shot. It was a solid shot. He didn't get much more than 25 yards, 30 yards from where I shot him. So it was fairly quick. Didn't require much searching. The year before, I shot a deer with my muzzleloader, with the 50 cal muzzleloader, and it was a clean heart shot, and there was arterial spray everywhere. Again, that deer didn't go much more than, say, 40 yards, and if that, and it was easy to track because of the arterial spray, and it didn't require a whole lot of searching. But I've done it before, shot deer, tracked and tracked and tracked, and not been able to find them. It hasn't been that often, thankfully, knock wood. It doesn't happen that often for me. I tend not to shoot at running deer. Usually I'm stand hunting or something of that nature to harvest a deer, and I want to make sure that my shots are well placed and good. I typically don't do too many facing shots either, right? So good headshots are always good if they're close enough and you trust your equipment. You know, saves on the meat for sure. But at the end of the day, I got a nice little buck. I was pretty happy with it, and let me tell you, he was mighty tasty. So anyway, if you're out there and you're enjoying the great outdoors and you're looking to harvest a buck, maybe this is the first time you've trying to harvest a deer. Good luck, and please, if you have any comments, comment below. Love to hear from you. Thanks a lot.